All right, so this is kind of what should you do 4 days, 5 days to your exam. All right, so let's go straight into the infamous page 25, okay? If your exam is coming up, learn from what Matt said and don't try to cram every single thing. It's too late at this point for you to even attempt that. But what I would advise you to do is just think about the overarching thoughts. Every project should have a project charter. And every project should have the project manager identifying stakeholders with the team. If you're in the world of Agile, you heard what he said, you still need an Agile project charter. And you should still, as a servant leader, work on identifying who stakeholders are, because the servant leader is a what? Bridge builder. What does a bridge builder do? A bridge builder connects people to people. So identify stakeholders in Agile still needs to happen. Let's talk about planning. For your exam on Saturday, your mindset needs to be this. The project manager needs to work on planning predictive projects, and you don't have a project management plan until you have done all of this stuff that falls under that first process up there. So think about it in chunks. If your exam is coming up, you need to think like this. As a project manager worth his or her salt, I need to plan around scope. Just think about it as a big chunk. I need to plan around scope. I need to plan around schedule. I need to develop a plan for cost. And then you can go a step further and say, okay, for the triple constraint, ultimately, I'm going to get a plan and baselines. So where is my plan from and where are my baselines from? Well, you're going to get a plan from here. You're going to get scope management plan. You're going to get a requirements management plan. Your baseline is coming from here, create WBS. Same thing for schedule. You need a plan and you need your baseline. Your baseline's coming from here. For cost, you need a plan, the cost management plan, and you need a cost baseline coming from there. If you don't have these three, scope, schedule, cost, plans, and baselines, then you don't have a PMB, a performance measurement baseline. So in PMI's world, this is the holy grail as far as how are we going to get a good handle on the triple constraint. When you get done with planning scope, it jumps all the way. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's nothing in executing. It jumps all the way into the controlling space. Same thing for schedule, jumps all the way. Same thing for cost. So you need to understand that the two big things, two big ticket items in the triple constraint are planning and then monitoring and controlling. That's it for the triple constraint. Going into quality, you need to understand, as a project manager, you should identify the metrics that you're going to use to instill quality. You do that here. Going into resource management, you got to understand, you estimate how much resources you need. Communications, of course, is planned. Going into risk, the minutia of risk is not really a concern. What you do need to know for risk is it does have to be planned, and you do need to come out with responses that you're going to implement. Going into procurement, in the world of predictive, make or buy decisions is what is going to catalyze this, or is going to stop it in its tracks. Not every project needs procurement, but as a good project manager, you make or buy decision. Going into stakeholder, you've already identified stakeholders. Well, now you're planning how to engage them. Now let's backtrack and go into the world of Agile at a super, super high level. Product backlog, sprint backlog. Going into schedule, could we use milestones? Yes. Where do milestones come from? Here. But we don't care in the world of Agile very much about going into the schedule. This is something you could do on your own as a team member. But at a very high level, we don't really need a schedule. Why? Because it's already time boxed. So the fact that we're working in Agile, this whole schedule and going into detail, we don't really roll that much in that regard. As far as controlling the schedule, no single person is doing that. But in our daily scrums, we're making sure we're accountable for our own schedules. What did I do yesterday? That's accountability for my own schedule. Now let's talk about the area of cost. At a higher level on the project, if you're working in the world of Agile, this is not something that the team is worrying about. The individuals who may have a task or some sort of story that is cost sensitive, they can deal with that on a case-by-case basis across the different sprints. Quality is built into Agile in and of itself. So there's really no need for you to be as worried about a quality management plan. No, your closest to that is going to be your definition of done. How do we know that we've truly finished this piece of work, this increment, right? So this whole quality talk is very different. It's built into the very frameworks we use in the world of Agile. Resource management, you already know it's a self-organized, self-led, self-managed team. So a lot of what we do in the team charter, it sets the pace and the tone for this. As far as acquiring resources, the team should have a say as to who joins the team. Nobody should be forced on the team. Oh, there you go, there's your new team member. No, in the world of Agile, the team should have a choice as to whether they want a team member from outside, whoever that person might be, because they're going to work with them. So the way we roll in the world of Agile is different. Develop team, the way we manage this again is different. The team is responsible for itself like an organism. They know if they need training, they can decide how to develop themselves. Managed team, we don't have management lording it over us. It's a self-led, self-organized, self-managed team. So you need to think about it from that perspective. And that takes us into executing. The whole thing about executing, doing the work, it's a daily thing in the world of Scrum, in the world of Agile. So in the world of Scrum, all of this minutia is negligible. It's really more of the mindset, understanding that we're working together, collective code ownership, we all own the code, T-shaped scales. Those are some of the thoughts you need to have. And as far as communication is concerned, you already know the information radiator is one of the fixtures in Agile. You also know the fishbowl window. We talked about that yesterday. In terms of implementing risk responses, this happens in Agile. We have the risk-adjusted backlog. We have spike work that we put into the backlog. Conducting procurements is not big in the world of Scrum, but in the Agile Practice Guide on page 77, like I mentioned this recently, just have an idea of how those contracts work, but I can assure you it's not a big ticket item on the exam. Instead, what is even bigger is understanding how stakeholders are engaged. So in the world of Agile, stakeholders have so many opportunities for engagement. All of those meetings, all of those ceremonies, if the team decides to call any stakeholder in, they can. They can call a stakeholder into a daily. They could call a stakeholder into a retrospective. It's the team. They can do whatever they see fit. So just keep that in mind. Going into the aspect of monitoring and controlling, this happens daily. The whole inspect, adapt thing in the world of Agile, it happens daily. Now, going into the world of predictive for your exam, really keep an eye on this and just know the flow of change requests, the logic behind the flow of change requests. You cannot approve a change request without it being reviewed. You cannot reject a change request without reviewing it. So the reviews are very important. Based on the review, you could also see how it touches schedule, cost, and scope. Going into this aspect of scope, in the world of Agile, we know how we roll with this. We've got reviews, right? In addition to the reviews, we've got collective code ownership. So someone's always looking at the code and it's not, oh, it's Phil's job. No, it's all of our code. So the way you would introduce the control as far as scope is concerned, because there's a difference between validate scope and control scope, right? Validate scope is the reviews that we do in Agile. But control scope is just making sure that what we're doing is actually in the sprint backlog. So if someone brings something outside of the sprint backlog to do, then control scope hasn't been obeyed. Control scope is making sure that what we're doing is in scope. So if you're doing anything outside of a sprint backlog, it's not in scope. That's the way you need to think about this stuff. You need to be able to switch organically. Same thing for control schedule. If someone's saying push out the sprint by 2 days, no, we don't do that in the world of Agile. The sprint is what it is. Now, in the world of flow-based, the way we do things is different. We don't have a fixed cadence. The cadence could vary, but it's still planned in advance. It's still planned out. What are we going to do? You got an idea. If you don't meet it, that's fine. You won't deliver until whatever you're doing is featured enough. Now, I really want to point out a few pages in the Agile Practice Guide before we go. I know I'm already over time. But I really want to point out this flow-based versus iteration-based, because I know some folks may not have paid attention to it. So let me call out the specific pages. I want you to pay attention to everything from page 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? All the way. So from page actually, Matt did mention some other pages. Why don't we just say the whole of chapter 3? Because this is definitely going to help you on your exam. Chapter 3 in the Agile Practice Guide, from the very beginning, I would say until you get to page 25, really hammer down on that narrative. All right, and everything else is pretty much built into the Agile frameworks that we use. Control costs, we're not really big on control cost in Scrum. It happens in the background. There's certain stakeholders, project manager. Yes, even project manager. I know we're talking about Scrum, but these individuals, think about them as people in the business. So on your exam, you're going to find a lot of mixing and melding. It's not going to be, here is Agile, here's Predictive. No, there's going to be a lot of hybridization. That's really what I want to stress. So I want you to get used to seeing a project manager on the scene, even in the world of Scrum. But you need to know that the project manager's role is a servant leader, someone who helps with stuff that the team typically doesn't do, like control costs. A project manager can help with this area, even within a Scrum team. A project manager can help with control procurement, because that's not typically something that a team member would go out on a limb to do, right? Sometimes it could, but other times it could just be a project manager or someone in the business. You see, there's this misnomer that the people in the business, they vanish in the world of Agile. They don't vanish. You still got HR, you still got accounting, you got finance. They're still there, but they act as servants to help the team get whatever they need. Control quality, this happens all the time in different ceremonies we do. You know, one of the ways we control quality right off the bat is make sure we're building the right thing. So building the right thing, it has to be done right from the get-go, from the visioning, from the road mapping, and so on. All right, controlling of resources. These are physical resources. Again, it is not something that we emphasize, but it's something that happens at the business level or project manager level, even in the world of Scrum. All right, so control resources deals with physical resources and materials and supplies and all that kind of stuff. But in the world of Scrum, we don't talk about it. Monitor communications. This is something that we do implicitly in the world of Agile. We should always be checking. Did that make sense? Did that follow the team charter? Did I just speak over a team member? Oh, then I went against the team charter. I shouldn't have done that, right? Monitor risks, something that we do daily. We do this daily. So not only should we be looking for blind alleys, we should also be looking at impediments, right? So when we take a look at monitor risk, we should also be thinking, okay, my issue log is where I log issues, but as far as monitoring risks, I first of all put them into a risk register and then I monitor them over here. All right, and that's pretty much it. Monitor stakeholder engagement. There's so many opportunities for you to do this in the world of Agile. You can do this on a daily basis by just observing if a stakeholder is engaged or not when you work with them. You know, the manifesto said business people and developers should work together daily, right? So daily, you should be checking to see, okay, is my stakeholder engaged? Am I getting what I need? And you have so many opportunities because at the end of every sprint, it's like a reset. So next sprint, new set of work, how is a stakeholder engaged and things like that. And then close project or phase, we don't do phases in Agile. Just remember that. In the world of Agile, what do? We do sprints. And once the sprint is done, it's done. There's no, oh, let's elongate the sprint. We don't do any of that, okay? And that's all I wanted to share with you so that you're able to shift, you know, in the world of sci-fi and all these movies, they have shapeshifters. They're able to shift between one being and another. You need to be a shapeshifter, shift between Agile and Predictive. And I see some people, they're not able to make the shift. They've got a roadblock. Some people can shift from one piece of Agile to another piece of Agile, but when it comes to Predictive to Agile, they're having trouble. All right, and that's all I had to share. Any questions before we close?